Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of the Red Couch Podcast. I'm your host, Konstantinos Drossos, and today we'll be taking a dive into the news surrounding Oasis, the band, and their announcement of returning to the limelight after 15 years of silence. You know, Oasis officially announced on their X, formerly Twitter page, with a random trailer in late August, and with just a random date. And many fans were speculating that it was a 30th anniversary edition of their hit album, Definitely Maybe, because other than that, like the rest of the stuff that was on their feed was, you know, just throwbacks to different concerts that were iconic in their in the Oasis legacy. But with this date, it was particularly a little jarring because people were speculating that it was just, you know, a release or there was something more to it. And it wasn't until August 27th in the morning when Liam Gallagher broke the news on his own account by posting a photo of him and his brother Noel together, announcing a surprise tour called Oasis 25. And the tour is slated for next summer with dates across or shows across all of the UK in like Dublin, London, Edinburgh, and different places like that. Like, for example, like Dublin has already sold out in a matter of hours after the announcement was put on online. Both Liam and Noel Gallagher have seemed to have, you know, overcome their differences from the past. You know, the band absolutely just out of the blue, it was a surprise to everyone, just broke up in 2009 after an altercation took place at a major festival in France, which Noel said, you know, was his last straw in the entire ordeal. And it was a massive fist fight, and that he said broke out in the dressing room, and he just was like, yeah, this is my last straw, and this is my last my last chance I'm giving Liam, and I'm stepping out. And he went on to create the High Flying Birds, and Liam had a band for a little bit called BDI, which didn't do it successful, and went, you know, on hiatus for a little bit before coming back with his own solo career, which took off. Aside from the two Noel brothers returning to the stage, there's a lot of speculation behind as to who else is going to be coming back, and a lot of people have been speculating that different, of the band members from the past, like different iconic members of the band, are making a return. One being Alan White, who was who fans say was their best live drummer, who posted on his own Instagram a photo of a drum set with noir, you know, black and white filter over top of the photo, which kind of matched the same photo that Liam had posted that I mentioned earlier on his Twitter, which was black and white of him and Noel. And people thought that this was a subtle message saying, "Hey guys, I'm coming back, and I'll see you next year in the summer for the tour." And aside from that, not on social media, but there was a lot of word floating around that their other guitarist, Jem Arthurs, was rumored to be coming back, and was debating whether or not he wanted to make an appearance with the Gallagher brothers on stage. And aside from those guys themselves, in the High Flying Birds, they have a couple of their old members too. One being another guitarist, Bonehead, which he goes by, and people are thinking that, you know, maybe he's going to make an appearance, but it wasn't until recently that he kind of shot down those rumors and said that he wasn't a part of the upcoming project. So soon after the tour was announced, more and more information was slowly creeping out on Reddit. And that was when a document was leaked with the North American leg, like a supposed North American leg, with cities across the U.S. and one or two in Canada. And one of the cities that was mentioned on the document that people could view was Toronto. And it was labeled to be held at a massive park venue called Downsview. And like when I saw this myself, I was kind of, you know, taken aback, because I was like, okay, me being a new Oasis fan in the most recent years, I was hoping that maybe I'd be able to get a chance to buy one of those tickets and go and see them live. But aside from that, you know, Boston and New York were also cities named on the American leg, but nothing has come forth since then. And, it's just left in the air right now. None of the Noel brothers have commented any speculation as to whether or not the document is true. But in the coming months, we'll see whether or not they'll tack on an extra, leg to the Oasis tour because, now that these guys announced that they're coming back, we're talking about one of the most iconic bands in the 90s that, toured around the world. You'd expect them to give people a little bit more outside of the UK and go and visit them in their own home countries to perform and whatnot. Now, another thing that happened with this entire ordeal after the announcement pretty much broke the internet was there was a Ticketmaster ordeal that happened similarly with Taylor Swift last year when she announced her Eras Tour. Fans in England ended up paying for tickets that were valued at £150 and spent more than $350. So we're talking about like seats that should have been £150, but because due to the a dynamic pricing strategy that the Oasis has put on to the tour, it skyrocketed to $350 because of how high in demand the tickets were. And like I said before, similar to how Taylor Swift and Ticketmaster was under investigation by the U.S. government, the UK government is now investigating Ticketmaster over what happened with the Oasis reunion, and seeing that there is a demand in this, it caused a whole stir up that angered a bunch of fans. But, with all the hype around this has many people wanting for the future. Will this be enough to convince the members to keep the band together and, expand and do more projects or new things now that they're back? And will it be enough for them to spend all this? Will it be enough for them to be convinced by fans if they all go out and spend all this money? So that has people talking about the future. After this Oasis 25 tour wraps up, everyone's wondering whether or not, the band is going to hit the recording studio and record a new album. And, one thing is recently Noel Gallagher was spotted in LA at a recording studio, which people thought was quite odd because he has just released, I think, a new album 1 or 2 years, like a year ago. Which received a lot of praise and whatnot, but people were thinking that he was back in the studio to record new tunes for a supposed Oasis album. Now that he and Liam have made up their feud that split the band all those years ago, and when I wrote an article for the Interrobang in the recent issue about whether or not the hype, this tour should be living up to the hype. An Oasis fan that I know named Finch Neves, his reaction to the entire thing was, this is great and all, but are they going to do as good as they did back in the 90s? Because, with all the fighting that happened and all the chemistry that they had back in that decade, people don't know if the audience is going to react the same, because now when people think about Oasis and what they produced, it's all about, Wonderwall, or some might say, or that sound itself. But, at that time, it was such an iconic, time in music that everything was pretty much original. And no one knows if they're going to be able to recreate that magic now that they're coming back after so long. And given the band's track record, especially with the relationship between Noel and Liam, who knows how much, that ticking time bomb will last until something explodes and everything, goes down for the worst. But, he was saying that, he thinks it won't be something like, an extensive album. It might be an EP with a couple hit songs, maybe 1 or 2. But he and a bunch of other fans that I've seen online on Reddit and whatnot, they don't think that they're going to live to the same hype that they once did. And yeah, that's all in the future, for what's to come after they wrap up this new surprise tour, Oasis 25. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Red Couch Podcast. You can catch up with every episode on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. Watch full episodes on our YouTube channel and subscribe to our newsletter to keep up with all things Fanshawe. For the Interrobang, I'm Konstantinos Drossos.